Welcome back here on my YouTube channel. Be sure to click the bell so you can stay up to date on when I drop new exclusive YouTube only content. We're going to be talking spooky. Nathan, and haunted houses, yes, are fun. Says not me, but everyone else. And then you add the fact that they're a funeral home, or were once a funeral home. That is, I guess, all the rage. And there is a funeral home, once a funeral home, for sale in Massachusetts, Millbury to be exact. It's for sale, and the top of it says probably haunted instead of for sale on the for sale sign. It's pretty interesting. And also, before we really dive in, if you're interested in our 12-month Mastermind class, where we're going to take a deep dive in all things growing, progressing your business in the funeral profession, because it's been always done this way for so long. We're going to take a deep dive in CRM and sales and products and processes and tech, social media, all the things we did great and where we blundered. There's a link down there. Click it. We're going to take a couple handfuls of people. It's a pretty exclusive deep dive. And if you want to live in a haunted house, you can go to Millbury, Massachusetts. It's really scary looking. Wow. It was once Turgeon Funeral Home. And this is from WCVB, reports that the funeral home was built in 1850 or earlier. The funeral home I started at was built in 1860 by Dr. William Sturman. He ran out of money. And there were some very spooky things that did happen at that funeral home as well. He was a doctor and was said to have an entire skeleton where he would study the bones of a human, or the remains of a human. This property was sold in 2001 for $100. Yeah, nobody wants to live there. Would you want to live in a once funeral home? Okay, you walk into a room. You walk into a room and there are people around, and you have this feeling, someone feels welcoming or someone feels standoffish or closed off. You have that feeling in life. It's real in death. When we die, I think there's an energy that still travels with our bodies. And people only on a few occasions have made me feel a sense of unease. And that is real. But Millbury, Massachusetts has a once funeral home for sale. It's supposedly haunted, and that is how they're promoting it. And it was the once Turgeon Funeral Home. So if you're interested in buying a funeral home that's apparently haunted and you want to live in Massachusetts, you should most certainly go there. Ooh, this one is creepy. This is in New York. There is a funeral home that was, a funeral home for 40 years. It is for sale. It's an old Victorian house, and it is for sale in Plattsburgh, New York for $325,000. It was a funeral home, and for 40 years, it cared for hundreds and hundreds of loved ones. And if that doesn't bother you, it's probably the perfect house for you. There's an old casket elevator, and there's an old embalming prep room still in the basement, supposedly, allegedly. It looks straight out of a Tim Burton film. Old Victorian homes, mini homes during the late 1800s and 1900s became, of course, funeral homes because they weren't built for funeral homes or were housing the deceased, and they were having wakes there. And then after World War II, funeral homes, instead of undertakers embalming you at your house, would actually take the bodies back to their houses. And so funeral homes kind of took the job away from the loved ones and their families. Think about that. Unintentionally, of course. And to this day, there's still this element of disconnect, but signing up for the Mastermind would allow for you to learn how to give that opportunity back to, because we're one of the only societies that doesn't participate in the funeral rites overall, right? There are lots of washing of the body and different faith traditions and different places of the world. They lay up with them all night, the deceased loved one, and there's just this disconnect that I think should be reconnected. I'm supposed to be talking about once haunted funeral homes. I mean, everyone could arguably say that every funeral home is haunted, because think of all of the stories and all the loved ones and all of the beautiful things and the heavy things that were brought through those four walls. And tragedy and grief can do a number of things for a space and place. I've never felt uneasy in the sense of a building that I've been a part of or served in. And there's a lot of beauty in that. There's a lot of beauty in the mystique of it, right? So if we know by the end of this that if you want to move to New York, Plattsburgh, or Millbury, Massachusetts, there are 2 once funeral homes for sale, and they can be yours. One's like $300,000 and one's $500,000, something like that. It's just a drop in the bucket. And if you can afford that, then you can definitely click the link in the bio. Or not the bio. That's not a bio. In the description. Be sure to subscribe. I can't ever say that word. Be sure to subscribe here. Click the bell to stay up to date, stay notified. And thanks for streaming all the music. Thanks for listening to the podcast. And thanks for meeting me here on the YouTube. Go buy a haunted house.